Hi there, welcome to podcast 99 from Football-Oranje. We're so close to 100 now. We're your home of Dutch football. I'm Michael Statham, joined by Mike Bell, the Football-Oranje editor. We've much discussed today. It's been a little while since our last podcast. We'll be discussing the Netherlands call-ups ahead of the last couple of games before the World Cup. So there are some new names in the squad. We'll be revealing who those are and our thoughts on those. The Eredivisie season has started. Ajax lead the table in its early stages after 5 games. And there's European games coming up as well. Lazio play Feyenoord and Ajax have got their first Champions League game as well. It's all coming thick and fast as the games condense ahead of the World Cup. Mike, how are you feeling? Have you enjoyed the start of the Eredivisie season?
Yeah, I think it's been a busy start. There's plenty to talk about. Play transfers. I'm glad the transfer window's over, so we can finally settle on just watching some games. And yeah, we've got the first Netherlands squad of the season as well, which I think's an interesting one. And we've got the Champions League and European games coming up as well. So I think it's going to be a busy few months heading into the World Cup.
And if you do enjoy our podcast, give them a like, subscribe if you're new, whether that's on YouTube or SoundCloud or Apple Podcasts. And if you would like to get involved, please do comment either on Twitter or on the YouTube comments. What do you think about the Netherlands call-ups? Are you happy with these ahead of the World Cup? Do you think any of these players are going to stick around the squad? Without further ado, let's actually just put the squad in front of me here. I've got here that we've got Joey Veerman in the squad. Finally, Mike, you must be so pleased that the PSV midfielder is in the team. Andries Noppert is a goalkeeper that's been called up from Heerenveen. He might be the third, fourth, or fifth choice goalkeeper, but it's good to see a new name in there in terms of that. We've got Brian Brobby and Kenneth Taylor called up to the squad. Pascal Struijk, again, has been called up from Leeds United. And Jeremy Frimpong could also make his debut. But no space, Xavi Simons, the Eredivisie top goal scorer in the early stages of the season. I agree with that. I think he's too young to get involved at the moment. And after the World Cup, where we really do see him more involved. Really pleased with him though, start of the season. I think it's really, I know they've had some easier games, PSV, but you can see how he's going to really grow into a great player coming into the season. But let's talk about the players that are involved, Mike. Joey Veerman, just Joey Veerman.
Yeah, I've been championing a bit to see him in the Netherlands squad for
you really have
ever since he joined PSV. But even before that, I thought at Heerenveen, if you're going to call up, a midfielder, I think that the midfield is something that it's not the weakest Netherlands. You got Frankie de Jong in there, you got Koopmeiners as well, but I think that it misses something.
I think,
yeah, I think you need somebody like a Joey Veerman in there. And yeah, he's finally got his call up he deserves, and I just hope he sticks in there for the actual squad. And this is only provisional that he's in, so there's going to be a few players that are going to get chopped away. But I really hope that he's one of the ones that sticks in there, especially if we see players like Davy Klaassen getting called up again, even though he's not a regular starter for Ajax. So, I mean, if Van Gaal starts picking, your Klaassens again over somebody like Joey Veerman, who's had a good start to the season, then, you've got to try and question that. But I think it's good to see Noppert. He's kept 4 clean sheets in 5 games for Heerenveen. And, made another really good save today in their 0-0 draws. So I think it's interesting to see him. It's a new name. It's nice for him. He's 28. It wasn't too long ago that he's getting picked up by Go Ahead Eagles as a free agent because he didn't have a club. So to go from that to Heerenveen to the Netherlands squad is some achievement. But I think he's had that good a start to the season. And yeah, the 2 Ajax boys, Taylor and Brobby, I think they've both had really good starts to the season. I think that Taylor's chipped in quite a few goals and Brobby looks good up front. So not surprised to see either of those. And Frimpong as well. He's right back. He was going to be in the squad before he got injured. So yeah, it's just he's had a good start to the season with Leverkusen. He's actually chipped in a few goals as well, so he's an attacking right back like Dumfries, so he gives another option at that position. So overall, I think the squad's a good one. I think that most of the players that should be there are there. Maybe a few questionable ones. Bruno Martins India again, over somebody such as
Chowder,
or even Sven Botman, who's been getting rave reviews for my club Newcastle, so I don't really know why he's not in there. But yeah, overall I'm happy with the squad. And for me, someone like Xavi Simons, as you say, he's young, he's had a good start to the season. PSV have had some easy games, scored against some of the lower clubs, but I think he was the best player on the pitch when he came on against Rangers. That horrible match that PSV ended up losing, but when he came on, PSV just looked so much better. And then against Twente, the game that they lost at the weekend, he was the only really bright spark in that side, playing at number 10 in the second half. So yeah, he's young, and you might say that we can wait till after the World Cup, but he's something that everyone's lack, which is creativity in the number 10 position. So if he continues this, if he has a really good game in midweek in the Europa League, and then if he has a really good game at the weekend, you never know. He could sneak into the squad. And if you ask me, would I rather see Xavi Simons or would I rather see David Klaassen? It's Xavi Simons 10 times out of 10.
Despite Klaassen's experience, I think the point I'm getting at here is it's nice to see some new names, particularly younger players. But if you've got players that have been in this team for 30, 40, 50 caps, how likely is it you'll see some of these newer names get in a place either in the starting 11 in the World Cup or part of that those 15 players that are going to be on the pitch for those games? Do you think it's really going to mix things up, or these players that might just be cut come the final squad?
I hope he makes it up, because I don't think he's made 100% the right choices so far in his squad selections. And players like Wijnaldum are out, and David Klaassen's not playing anymore. So he's got to freshen up a bit. And I think that some of the young blood that's coming out this season, Kenneth Taylor is a guaranteed starter. He didn't start a weekend, but he came on at half time, basically for Ajax this season. David Klaassen's not. So I think you got to pick players on if they deserve it, rather than being an experienced name or a more famous name, someone like David Klaassen. But Van Gaal has his choices. He picks Bruno Martins Indy because he likes someone he's worked on before. So here's the question what he's going to do. But I'd like to see some of these young players named in the final squad, because these are the last two games he gets to experiment before the World Cup. So why not give Robbie, why not give Veerman a chance before he has to then pick the squad for Qatar?
Love to see your cat there make a little appearance.
Yeah, it's right behind the screen, so I'm going to have to move him.
Well, I'm guessing your cat doesn't have an opinion on Kenneth Taylor being in the squad, so I'll ask you instead. What do you think is making him so good in these early stages of the season? Last season, he didn't really get much of an opportunity, and now he has been given that chance. Why is he being so good, and why do you think Van Gaal likes him?
I think he just does all the basics right. I think he's one of these tidy Ajax midfielders that comes through and he can pass the ball. He can score goals. He's chipped in quite a few this season already, and I think he's just a very calm head in the midfield, and I think that's what Van Gaal likes. I don't know if he adds anything much different from somebody like Koopmeiners. We know I'd rather have Kenneth Taylor next to Frankie de Jong, or I'd rather have Koopmeiners. That debate's still out there. I think that over the course of the season, I think we'll see more from Kenneth Taylor, but I think he just looks so comfortable since coming into the Ajax 11, and he's taken over from Gravenberch easily. And look a worse side. I think that Albert Schroeder noticed that at the weekend, bring him straight back on it in the second half. And yeah, I think he's taken to the Eredivisie perfectly. Last season he was in and out the side. Erik ten Hag wanted to send him on loan. He said no. I think he's been vindicated that he is Ajax quality, and I think that this call-up is deserved, and I think that he's going to be part of the Netherlands squad for years to come. And if he can keep improving, keep scoring goals, and keep putting in some dominant performances in midfield, then he's a definite asset going forward.
We'll be, of course, doing some more coverage in the Netherlands towards these two fixtures. There's one against Poland and one against Belgium. Just a small heads up. I don't know if there'll be a live stream after the Poland game, but there will be after the Belgium one. But what are these things that you want to see now from these last two games, Mike? If we don't do a podcast between now and then, what do you want to tell everyone? What do you think people will be thinking as well that are watching this? What are those last little tweaks that Van Gaal has to make?
I think he needs to shore up. There's certain, I think, areas in the midfield that he needs to decide who's going to play where. Is it going to be Koopmeiners next to Frankie de Jong? Who's going to play in the advanced role? Is it going to be even Cody Gakpo, who's number 10 for a while in previous internationals? Is he going to be the first choice there? Is it going to be Klaassen, or is it going to be somebody like Berghuis? Who's going to play up front? I think that it looks pretty obvious it's going to be Memphis and Bergwijn. judging by the way Bergwijn started the season and the way he's played recently for the Netherlands, I think that of all the attackers in the squad, Bergwijn's one that you can't really drop. Whereas, Van Gaal has to answer why Memphis is in the squad, having not played a single minute for Barcelona this season. He's getting in there because of how important he is for Netherlands. But Van Gaal has said before that if you're not playing, you're not in the squad. So it's interesting to see that Memphis is staying there, even though he's not played a minute yet. But yeah, you can't drop him. I mean, he's too important to the side. And the other questionable area I've got is a left back. Is he going to stick with Daley Blind, even though Molassie has an excellent start for Man United? I think that since Molassie took over from Shaw, Man United have won every game that he started. So can you really justify? I'm not saying it's down to Molassie being a left back, but if he's doing that in the Premier League week in, week out, Man United are winning games, then can you really justify shoehorning Daley Blind there just because of Blind's passing ability? It's a difficult one, but I think that we will see Blind, and I just want to see a bit of rotation, a bit of confidence, and 2 wins, obviously, to actually get through to the next round of the Nations League, because that's the ultimate goal. There's a trophy at the end of this tournament. Everyone's at the top of the group. A strong performance away to Poland, which could be a tough game, and then Belgium come to visit looking for revenge after what we did to them in Belgium. So yeah, I think it's 2 tough games, but 2 good experiments ahead of the World Cup.
Agreed. 2 tough fixtures for that reason. I would be so surprised not to see Malacia though now. Blind has had the finest start to the season. There are several excellent centre-backs at the Netherlands' disposal now. I don't see how he fits in there. So Malacia should be given that chance. I'm really pleased that he's taken that move to Man United and it's worked out for him, because he could easily have gone there and not played. Or gone there and it'd been an awful situation for him, which it was to begin with, obviously. But he's now been in the team and they're winning games. So that for me says that Van Gaal should be picking him at left back. And also you lose Blind's passing ability, but you gain a lot of what Malacia does well as well. I don't think that the Netherlands is essential for the passing. You've got Frenkie de Jong. He's just one of the best passers in the world for all that kind of build-up play and that. So it's not essential. And Bergwijn, yeah, I think that's nice. It's a nice thing to the next thing we should talk about in this podcast, and that is Ajax's start to the season, which people thought, that no one's talking about them. No one's going, wow, look at Ajax, but they're winning their games. They won 5 out of 5, and Bergwijn, like Xavi Simons, is one of the top goal scorers in the league right now. Bergwijn has been great. We kind of expected that if he could replicate his Netherlands form in the Eredivisie, he would probably be one of the top goal scorers. Such an important addition to them, and he's helped them forget all these departures from the club. Ajax's transfer window at the end, that got a bit chaotic, didn't it? But they got some players in. I don't think there's any major gaps now in the side. And Bergwijn is filling that massive hole that's been left by Haller. And they're doing okay, aren't they?
Yeah, I think that it's been a good start to the season, but I think the first real test will be this week against Rangers. I think that'll be where we see how good a start to the season it is for them. But yeah, I think that the transfer window wasn't great for them. I think that so many players wanted to leave, so many players did leave, and what happened to Alvarez and Kudus just before the window shut as well. It's a worrying time for Ajax, because come January those players are going to stamp their feet again and go. That could be halfway through a really tight title race, and then you're losing Edson Alvarez, who is such a key player for Ajax. I think that they've signed well. I think that Basti looks good at the back. I think Ocampos will be an excellent signing when he gets some game time. But out that front three, who do you drop? You got Tadic, who I know I've seen some Ajax fans criticising the way he's started the season and saying that why can't you bench him? I even saw, I don't remember if it was Afly or someone like Schneider saying that you can't be too scared just to drop him to the bench, because it seems like he always has to play every single game, or if he gets taken off, it's in the last couple of minutes. Whereas you got to see Ocampos, Bergwijn, and Brobbey. I think that'd be a more effective, pacey front three. And then I think that the youngsters that have come in, the likes of Kenneth Taylor, who have adapted really well. So I think it's a very positive start to the season so far for Ajax. I don't think they have any gaps, even though they have lost players. And yeah, I think Bergwijn's start the season does mean that Antony's loss isn't horrific. And the fact that Ajax got 100 million for him, I think is an excellent deal. And I think that if you're going to lose Martinez and Antony, at least have sort of robbed Man United blind by getting that amount of money for them. I know Antony started and he scored today, but there's still question marks whether he was. I wouldn't say that great a player. He is a good player, but is he worth 100 million? I wouldn't have thought so. Based on his performances, and he lost the ball far too easily. And a lot of people highlighted his game against Groningen. He scored a couple of goals and he looked really good, but that was a 1 in 10 game for him. Just sometimes where he couldn't do anything and he lost the ball constantly. He was quite a selfish player at times. And if you look back at the Champions League last year, you wouldn't say it was Antony that was the one that was starring for a side as much as someone like Haller did. And in years gone by, somebody like even David Nares had an impact in the Champions League. I don't think Antony did that for Ajax, but he's gone now, and I think that Ajax's front three isn't exactly hurt by it because you've got Robbie there and you've got Ocampos to come off the bench. You've got Conceição as well, who looks a decent talent on the bench as well. So yeah, I think that Ajax fans can be pleased with the start to the season. I think there is room to improve, and I think that we'll see just how good they are when they face Rangers, who can frustrate. They frustrated PSV. They made PSV look very, very ordinary, and PSV were very, very ordinary. And that lost them, which has got to be absolutely gutting for their fans because that was a huge opportunity.
Yeah.
I don't think Rangers are that. I don't want to be too disrespectful, but I don't think Rangers are that strong when you look at what happened at the weekend, where they got absolutely battered by Celtic, who just put them under pressure from the first minute and just overran them. And I think that if Ajax can press them hard, go at them hard, then they can do the same. So I think it's usually the case in Europe that what PSV can't do, Ajax can, and I think that Ajax will maybe comfortably beat Rangers in the week ahead, and then PSV fans will be like, well, why couldn't we do that?
It's one that they have to win, I think, isn't it? If Ajax want to progress, it's an interesting group that they're in, where almost anything could happen. The start that Liverpool have had to the season, you've got someone like Napoli in there who are a good side, but not a top side in Italy. You've got Rangers, who aren't one of the worst fourth seeds that could have come out, and then Ajax, who we don't know quite yet how their impact will be with losing players and their manager Erik ten Hag. The jury will be out on Alfred Schroeder, and a lot will be made of these next few weeks. It's an important month for him, I think, September. Where will it go for him? But it's looking good so far, and I hope it continues for a Dutch club's sake in Europe. But it could mean that, of course, that there's a new title winner this season. But could it be PSV, Feyenoord, or somebody else? I think Feyenoord are a team that I perhaps discounted a little from a title race earlier in the summer. But they signed lots of players. They've still got Arne Slot as manager. And they've come out of the start of the season relatively unscathed. 13 points out of 5 games. Talk to me about them. Do you think that they will have this run in the league in Europe? They've got such a big squad now to cope that if they settle down and they're actually really good players, such as Szymanski, who seems like an awesome attacking midfielder, then they could really win this league.
Yeah, I think that Feyenoord have had a very encouraging summer. I think that the signings that they've made and some of the players that they've lost have been replaced with good replacements. I think that I'd worry defensively. I think they were really poor this weekend defensively.
Yeah, some stuff goals, right?
Yeah, they shipped 3 goals against the side they should be shipping 3 goals against, and ended up winning 4-3. But I think going forward, they look good with, as you said, Szymanski. I think he looks like an absolute excellent signing. Dilroson's chipping in with the goals, and yeah, I think that they've got enough options on the bench now that if things aren't going well, they do have a couple of players that they can bring on to change the game. I think looking at it defensively, and they did well without Geertruida, who I think is key for them. But even Justin Bijlo, I think, had a poor game at the weekend, and he's usually so reliable. So they're going to have to be more defensively sound than they were at the weekend to win the title. But I think it's going to be an exciting season ahead for Feyenoord because they have done well in the transfer window. They have got enough talented players to mount a real challenge for the for their Eredivisie title, and I think in Arne Slot they have arguably the best manager out of the top three. So yeah, I think that they are going to be closer to what the top two are than they were last season. So yeah, I'm excited to see what they can do, and I think that they've got a good group in Europe as well to challenge themselves. They got Lazio up this week. They can't defend as they did the weekend against Lazio. They get battered, but yeah, I think that it's a good test for them. To go to Rome and maybe get a bit of revenge for the loss to Roma last season. But yeah, I like Feyenoord this season. I think it could be another positive year. They got to a European final last year. You could look at winning the cup, you could look at winning the league, and you can look at going quite far in Europe. So yeah, Feyenoord, they look good.
They could they should be getting through that Europa League group that they're in, and going away to Lazio. You never know, they could really turn up there and put up a great performance. Their early season form suggesting a team that very quickly this season we jumped upon the bandwagon of is PSV, and then they lost 2-1 away at Twente, sort of their first tough fixture of the season in the league. Add that on top of the Rangers disappointment, and then you're looking at something a bit like last season, where they were able to win those easier games quite well, look really convincing, but then play a top team and look completely maybe not overrun against Rangers, that's probably the wrong way of putting it, but they were very ordinary against Rangers. And then the Twente match, it was chance after chance, wasn't it? So what does Van Nistelrooy have to do? He's still got a lot of work to do, hasn't he? It's not going to be as simple as him just coming in. He's got some things to change.
Yeah, I think that before the season started, I thought that PSV had solved the biggest problem, but I don't think they have, because Joe Drama was the reason that they lost many games last season, and I thought Walter Benitez coming in would stop that. But Walter Benitez is the reason why they've not had that great a start to the season in the Champions League, and also against Twente as well. I think defensively, him and Ramalho have both had really, really difficult starts to the season. And they really need Boscagli back. I think he's back in training, but I think him coming back into the starting 11 to shore up that defence would be huge. Yeah. And at the weekend, I think that Luke de Jong was a huge miss. Watching the first half, they played Simmons through the middle as a sort of false nine, and for some reason they thought the best plan was just to pump it along to him.
Yeah, long balls at him. It's just like the worst player.
Yeah, it's like why are you trying to pump it along to someone so small and so his aerial challenges? And then the second half to move him into midfield, and it looked a lot better. You can say that Van Nistelrooy did something well there, and you can say that in the second half they improved a lot, but they just couldn't get that equalising goal after pulling one back. But yeah, I think that defensively they're not as strong as they should be, and up front, Luke de Jong's a big miss because you don't really have that second striker since they've let Carlos Vinicius go. I don't think Jorge Vertessens, he's just come back from an injury, and the jury's still out on just how good he can be. So we'll see what sort of impact Anwar El Ghazi can have. Where do they fit him in? Does Bakayoko and Sabari drop down to the bench and he goes on the right, Gakpo on the left, and Luke de Jong from the middle? We'll see if that works out. But after a very, very promising start to the season, it seems to just fallen off a bit for PSV, because I thought they would easily win that return game against Rangers, having got a draw away, and probably should have won away if it wasn't for some horrific goalkeeping. But yeah, that's like they were just so passive, and just Rangers, could have won that game 2-3-0, and they were that bad. So yeah, it's difficult to say, because I still think that they have the capability of winning the league, and the fact that they've kept Sangare and Gakpo means that they are going to challenge for it. But they're too error prone at the moment to really mimic that, and they have beaten all the sides that they should be beaten. And as you say, the first time that they come against a real test, they lose. So when they come up against Ajax and Feyenoord and AZ, are they going to be able to win those games? So that's what Van Nistelrooy need to work against. Getting them ready for the big games.
Let's talk about AZ Alkmaar. Pascal Janssen was under criticism from us and also the supporters of AZ. Like, they didn't seem to be improving the team. There just seems to be big gaps in the team in terms of the creativity from the wings, not enough quality there. Defensively, the goalkeeper is an issue. I mean, how much of that can you blame Janssen for if he's not been back financially to begin with. It seemed to be anyway, and also not able to get a new goalkeeper in. But they seem to have they have responded to their loss to Dundee United. They've won 7 out of 8, unbeaten in those 8, 5 clean sheets, and I think that they're back amongst that. Could push for top 3. Twente also looking very good despite them being knocked out of Europe. I thought that was so unfortunate how they got knocked out. But RZ, I think they've got some tests ahead. They play Ajax soon, and they've got Twente next weekend. In Europe, they've got dare I say it, easy group in the Conference League. They should be top of that, 6 wins out of 6. So things look good for them. What do they do? I mean, they've got, is it Mihailovic? There's this new American player who can come in as a number 10. Miami's playing as a striker. You never know. Pavlidis is out injured for a little while now. With no real backup striker there. So, what do you make of them so far?
Yeah, I think it'd be good to say about Mihailovic. He's not joining until January because they've let him stay until the end of the season. Yeah, they let him stay until the end of the season's over until he comes. But they've spent a lot of money on him, so it's interesting to see what he can do when he comes in. But yeah, I think the season's been, got off to a horrible start with that loss to Dundee United, but then they sort of rectified it in the second leg. But yeah, I think that I don't know if they're ready to challenge for the league. I don't think they're ready for that yet. I still think squad depth-wise, Pascal Janssen doesn't like to rotate very much, and he only rotates if he's forced into it. So if Pavlidis comes out, Odegaard comes in, but he doesn't really make any real changes to starting 11. And if they're playing twice a week, he needs to do that. He needs to rotate, but does he have the options to rotate? And I think he does to an extent. I think defensively, they are a bit short. Bruno Martins out at the moment. I've seen a youngster come in, Mies Bakker, and he's done well. You're still playing Hazidiakos at right back, and Suguara has been back for quite a while, but it seems that he's not getting the game time that he usually gets. But I think that the youngsters come on the wing. Van Broderode, he looks very, very good at just starting attacks and getting the ball up the other end of the pitch. I think he's one of the top dribblers in the league so far this season. So he looks like a real talent. And in the midfielder, Jordi Clase, and I think Gianni Reinders has had an excellent start to the season. I was really surprised to read reports that they could have even sold him. 20 being interested, because I think that he's been up there, possibly their best player of the season so far. He keeps chipping in with goals, so I think keeping him was a really good idea. And I think that they are going to be. I think they will finish 4th this season. I think that they are just a couple of players short of being able to challenge for the top 3, because I don't think that Janssen's going to rotate, and I think that it's going to come back to bite them if there's a couple of injuries to key players if they get tired. So we'll see how they do. I think they've got, as you say, the Conference League group isn't the toughest. There's a couple of unknowns in there. There's Dnipro -1. They beat Dynamo Kiev, I think 3-0 the other week. So, but you just don't know with the Ukrainian league how good these sides are, and they're not playing in Ukraine. They're playing in Slovakia this week. So we'll wait and see how good what they are. But it's a bit of a journey into the unknown. But yeah, he said, after another summer where they've probably not spent as much money as they could have, they've not really lost any really key players, and I think that they can be happy with it at the start of the season.
Yeah, they can. We're running short of time, so I'd like to know, Mike, what are 2 things that have drawn to your attention in the bottom half of the Eredivisie table so far? I think for me, the first one has been the absolute shocker, which has been Fortuna Sittard start to the season, sacking Shaw Saute so quickly, and then allowing Burak Yilmaz to sort of rule his roost over the team in training sessions. I find that so wild. And then not to have a replacement lined up. It's just not a good look for them, which is a shame. And the other one has been Volendam kind of being absolutely inconsistent, and one weekend keeping a clean sheet against Twente, and then all of a sudden conceding 7 against PSV and 4 against Sparta. They're a team I think that are going to be hard to try and pin down this season as to what they are, and they've got some decent strikers, but they've continued what they had last season, which is scoring lots and looking good sometimes, and then conceding lots. But at least they'll be a good watch for a lot of people. How about you? What are 2 things that have kind of drawn your attention?
Yeah, I think I would agree with Fortuna Sittard. It's such a, we did the preseason podcast and I was like, oh, it's a team that could watch to maybe break into European spots. But so far it was like absolute shambles. Yilmaz is scoring penalties, but they can't really make him play or coach. And I think that whoever they make head coach is going to be a huge decision, because if they get that wrong, then they could become relegation candidates based on their start to the season. So I've seen Philip Cocu linked with it. A big name like that would probably provide a boost to see the squad on. But yeah, I mean, I've given Yilmaz too much power, I think, and if he played a role in I'm sacking a head coach and then he's sort of taken over, it's not a really good look for the club or for him himself, and especially with him being bottom of the table without a single point. So yeah, that's one to keep an eye on, just to see if they can recover or if they're going to be near the bottom. The other the club that I've sort of pinpointed to have a good season that really haven't started off well would be Utrecht. I expected more from them. Going into the season with the players that they've signed, and they even brought in a couple more towards the end of the window with Jens Tunstra coming in. So I think they'll get better as the season goes on, but them being in the bottom half with only one win so far from their first 5 games was a bit of a shock to me. So yeah, I think that those two clubs are the ones that I thought were primed for really good seasons, and have not really started off that way.
I think Fraser, I don't think it's going to be a great start either. After disappointment with Sparta Rotterdam, to then have the start he's had with Utrecht, he could be sacked really quickly if things don't get better. Just say, everyone, if you enjoyed this podcast, do give it a big like, subscribe if you're new. Don't forget to comment down below if there's anything that's caught your interest today. Any thoughts in particular on the Netherlands national team? Your thoughts in the start of the Eredivisie season? Let us know. But we need to finish, Mike, on Memphis Depay saying he was going to stay at Barcelona. He obviously feels as though Van Gaal will still pick him for his World Cup squads, still be given opportunities. The same happened with Cody Gakpo. He stayed at PSV because Van Gaal kind of gave him a nudge to say, I think it's best for your development to do that. So why do you think Memphis decides to stay in Spain?
It's a strange one to me, because he was linked heavily with Juventus, but that fell through because he was demanding, according to reports, he was demanding astronomical wages to move to Juventus, and I just don't see why he wouldn't want to go to Juventus, because right now he's in a hopeless situation. He's probably not even 5th choice attacker for him. He's probably 6th, 7th choice, and he's only going to get to come in if there's injuries, or if Lewandowski drops out, he's going to get replaced by Fati, and then at the wings they've got Rafinha, Dembele, and even if they drop out, they've got Ferran Torres. So I mean, Xavi's not even giving them 5-10 minutes at the end. He's just not getting game time at all. And even in the Champions League, Barcelona are going to want to do something in that competition this year, and if they start off with Victoria Pilsen, I think this weekend, they're probably going to go with their strongest 11 again, and that means Memphis isn't going to get any minutes until it comes to cup games, and then maybe some really lower league teams that if they think that Lewandowski needs a rest before a big game, they might give him some time. But that's not what Memphis should be hoping for at this stage of his career, with a World Cup coming up, where he's going to be the starting striker. He should be wanting to play week in, week out, and be the star of the show. And I don't really know why, when he's such a determined player with such a high ceiling, why he would just settle for being nothing but a bench player at Barcelona when he had offers and he had a chance to go. And Barcelona were actually willing to terminate his contract to let him go for free if he found an agreement with another club. But clearly no clubs came that he thought were of his caliber or were willing to offer the money that he wanted. So yeah, it's disappointing for me, because I like to see Memphis play and I want to see him play week in, week out and score goals. But he must just feel that he's that integral to this Netherlands side that whatever he does, he's not going to get dropped. And he's probably right. Van Gaal's probably not going to drop him. But if he's going to a World Cup in November, not playing a single game for Barcelona, or even playing just one in every 6, he's going to be rusty. He's not going to get the some sort, or even near to what other top strikers going to that tournament are going to have. You could say, oh, you'll be going to a tournament fresh, but you don't want to be going to a tournament having played no games, because then you're rusty. You don't want that as a striker. You want to be going into a tournament scoring goals and looking confident. So yeah, it's a worry for me, given that he is so integral to Netherlands, and I'd rather have seen him go to a club where he's going to play week in, week out, even if it's back to somebody like a Lyon or a Marseille, or even he's going to link to somebody like Sociedad. If it means I'm playing every single week, it's a lot better than sitting on a bench and doing nothing.
Let's hope he gets some games. Let's see what he's like in the Netherlands. 2 fixtures coming up as well. And just say to everybody that we'll be doing more content, of course, on football-oranje.com ahead of these 2 Netherlands fixtures coming up. And stay tuned as well for more kind of podcasty stuff coming in the next few weeks. Yeah, thanks for watching. Give it a like if you enjoyed it.